Inane Glory asks, why are there obvious influences of the other first century mystery cults on the Gospels so discounted by Bible scholars?
Yeah, so that gets to motivation. So here's the thing: it's like when propagandists will never admit and hate when you suggest that they have ulterior motives. I can tell you what I think. Like they're not going to say this, but I'll tell you what I think. I mean, and you get this in Jonathan Z. Smith and all the other, who's been refuted, by the way. But this is another thing: obsolete paradigm. Jonathan Z. Smith's book, Drudgery Divine, has been fucking carpet bombed by peer-reviewed scholarship since then. I'm so happy to see other people carrying the water on that. But it's clear that, and this, so to give you an example, so there was a turn, I want to say it was in the 90s, I'm not sure about the timeline, where there was a sort of movement in biblical studies to admit that Jesus was Jewish. And you think like that, yeah, that's obvious, right? But no, it wasn't, right? Like so, like it made a big deal in terms of reinterpreting everything in the New Testament. It's like no, if you just admit that Jesus is Jewish, like it changes everything that you understand about the Gospels. And there was pushback, and it took a while to like force this through. That was hard. That was a hard pill for Christians to swallow because they can't have that, right? Like Jesus has to be special. He has to be like he's a creator of a new paradigm. You can't just say he was just like an ordinary rabbi, right? Like that can't be. Now, of course, now it's mainstream to just accept that. And in fact, it's so mainstream that they will accuse you of anti-Semitism if you even deny that. But it's true, right? Like clearly, if Jesus existed, he was fucking Jewish. Like that's, and everything he's saying is actually, and if you look at through the lens of Judaism, everything in Christianity makes a lot more sense. So that's true. Now, if you were to, but it was hard to even admit that, even though it's like fucking in the Bible, it's like obvious that Jesus is Jewish and that Christianity is a sect of Judaism. That was a rough pill for Christians to accept. Can you imagine if you were to go one step further and say, oh, actually, it's kind of pagan. It's not just, it's a syncretism of Judaism, paganism, fucking paganism, satanic, demonic paganism. No, they can't have that either, right? Like so yeah, that's the pushback. It can't be. It's like Luke Skywalker, clinging to the thing with a missing hand. Like it's impossible. It can't be. And so yeah, you get this resistance to the idea that actually is a syncretism. We would not have this problem explaining Mithraism or Osiris cult, saying Osiris cult is a syncretism of Egyptian religion and Hellenistic mystery cult. People are like, yeah, that's obvious. Like, of course. But saying that like Christianity is just a Jewish version of that, or it's a Judaism and mystery cult. So they, no, how dare you insult us? No way Christianity can be pagan. It's divine. It comes from heaven. It's unique. It's special. It solved all the problems in the world. It can't possibly be. Anyway, so yeah, that's the attitude that you get. So it's hard to push against that. There are many scholars who push against it, and there's two different kinds of responses. Some as they get vilified, and others they get ignored. So I talk about this in Obsolete Paradigm. There's actually new studies that have come out that have shown that, like, yeah, obviously Christianity is based on the mystery cults. I'm doing a series on my blog. I did Dying and Rising Gods, Virgin Birth, and Baptism, showing the same thing. And I show that, yeah, there's a lot of scholarship now. They're kind of like, they're opening the door and admitting, oh, okay, yeah, we're admitting this. This is definitely, it's really a pagan thing, converted with, combined with Jewish, it's a syncretism, etc. But it's a rough pill, and a lot of people aren't reading it or don't care about it. Like they're ignoring it or vilifying it or whatever. The next one I'm going to do is the Eucharist, Lord's Meal. I have a ton of scholarship lined up to eventually do a blog on that. And there are a lot of scholars who are admitting, okay, yeah, it's almost mainstream now. That's mystery cult. Yeah, they all had like Lord's Suppers, and they're very similar, and they have the similar rules to like Paul talks about. It's obviously an influence, etc. But that's like, no, that can't be. It had to be like divinely special from God. It can't possibly be a fucking, a ripoff of an earlier product. Like, anyway, so yeah, there's a hostility there, and this is an example of how the field is full of these pressures that are based on the need to not offend Christians, even from secularists, and that affects the field's ability to sort of admit things, and that's a problem that's fairly distinct to biblical studies. There are a few close analogs. I would say like the neo-Confederate hostility to histories of slavery. Like that's a similar kind of where you have two different cultures that will resist and oppose and vilify any suggestion that slaves were unhappy or that slavery was bad. But that's really a thing. There's actually historians who argue that. But at least there, they don't dominate the field. But whereas in biblical studies, it's imagine if neo-Confederates actually dominated a field, like you would hear the same kind of bullshit. But that's exactly what we're dealing with biblical studies.